Godzilla and the Incredible Hulk. Yes, you heard me right. Godzilla and the Incredible Hulk finally meet face to face for the first time in years. Because technically this isn't the first time that an official publishing has introduced the two characters. Long ago, Marvel did a crossovers in the 50s, 60s, whatever. But here, we get a new tale in the modern times, showing what happens when the king of the monsters meets the strongest one there is. And as we will find out and see, due to some circumstances, they almost fuse and create a new entire being altogether, a being whose power is almost unholy. But welcome back to The Hero Informer. This is AJ, and what we immediately see and realize that this is a timeline where the government and the heroes of this universe has essentially killed every giant monster or kaiju that has came about. Not only that, but Godzilla and the other kaijus exist in this universe. And what other man to run this kaiju and monster killing division than Thunderbolt Ross himself, who has had years of experience in hunting and trying to kill and capture the Incredible Hulk, who is a green Goliath monster in his own right. But here, their main mission, after almost wiping out every other type of kaiju, their most dangerous project ever is capturing and pacifying Godzilla, which of course, going on how it sounds, is a pretty big ask and task. And in another bizarre twist, we actually see what happened to the Incredible Hulk, or in this case, his other half, Bruce Banner, as it turns out he is actually working for this organization, this Thunderbolt Ross team. The comic even going on to say, down in a bunker below, a brilliant scientist with a big secret roamed. He had learned the art of meditation, and it had been a few years since this man had lost control of his temper and of course turned into the Hulk himself, in which we later go on to find out that everybody in the present now thinks for whatever reason the Incredible Hulk is dead, not knowing of course that Bruce Banner is here and almost under their nose. But also we see another person here, the leading scientist within this whole project, a man named Dr. Demonicus. Now, as his name kind of sounds and he looks, yeah, he is kind of part demon, if that makes any sense, but also at the same time he's just a normal man in a mask. Now, his origin and when he was introduced was actually in the old Godzilla comics back in the 70s, which I think I got wrong at the beginning. I said 50s, 60s when it actually was the 70s. But to get really caught up with his character, he was essentially a normal man, a criminal, in which after some dealing with radiation and mutation, he had his literal face and head fused with his mask, and so instead of it being a mask now, it's his own skin, his face. And later on he goes on to uncover a temple with a very strong demonic presence, taking him over, and now he is kind of this weird figure. He doesn't have any exuberant or crazy powers though, he is just super intelligent. Though as we find out, his intelligence is his main strong suit, as he seemingly has come up with a plan, a device, to take on the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. As he goes on to say, my kaiju incinerator will be more than enough for the so-called king of monsters. And it seems like he might actually be onto something here, as so far, as we get a little bit more lore drop, he has not only killed Fang Foom, the Hulk as everybody believes him to be dead, but Surtur himself and many other giant monsters within the Marvel universe, but so far not Godzilla. Plus, technically they don't even really want to kill Godzilla per se, more capture and pacify, because sure, you can kill Godzilla, but the bigger achievement here is beating the king of the monsters and bringing him to your side, and they very much have a plan to do so. As what we do here, we move over and see that essentially for their plan to work, they have to bait Godzilla into coming to them, because we see Mothra, the moth kaiju that has a very close relationship to Godzilla, is being ensnared and captured by another spider kaiju named Kumonga, which I've probably butchered that name crazily. But the spider monster or kaiju being controlled by this organization essentially goes on to do their bidding. But even down below, while this is happening, Bruce Banner goes on to saying surely there has to be a less cruel way to lure Godzilla in. Even going on to ask Demonicus, and what happens when Godzilla is off the board completely? What will you do then? He essentially goes on to say that this battle, this war with the kaijus and every great monster has cost him everything. His body, his mind, his utter soul. These kaijus have utterly destroyed him. Be grateful, Dr. Banner, that you have no idea what it's like to be a monster. Ironically telling the one man out of everybody who knows firsthand what it's like to be a monster and destroy everything you hold dear, and yet still have to live the life of a normal human. Speaking of destroying stuff and monster, we finally see Godzilla for the first time. And yeah, it seems like his plan has worked perfectly. Godzilla got lured in by Mothra being attacked and captured, and so he is essentially here to put his foot down as the king of the monsters and assert his dominance. And now that Godzilla himself is here, the ultimate kaiju, you might ask, what is their plan? Surely it has something that is foolproof, like some sort of powerful ultra gas or disease from inside Godzilla's body. But no, that would be boring. It's not as action-packed as just having more giant robots who engage in a fist fight. And just like that, we see two giant rebuilt MechaGodzillas fly out, one being piloted and controlled by Thunderbolt Ross himself, and the other by Bruce Banner. Now, I really love how this timeline and comic deals with this lore, because it's more of you're picking up in the end or in the middle of an already drawn out conflict and situation. The comic even going on to say the rebuilt MechaGodzilla should be more than enough, and the performance of these machines and armors have been vastly improved by Tony Stark. Though we find out that rebuilding these powerful suits of armor didn't come easy for Stark, as it literally cost him his very life. The comic going on to say, may Stark rest in peace. Godzilla may have crushed him in battle, but perhaps his genius intellect will finally finally help us get rid of the scaly curse. And with that, they immediately start to do battle. Godzilla, of course, instantly getting the upper hand, frying the head of one of the MechaGodzillas. But these giant suits of armor were specifically made to take on the king of the monsters, so of course they can hang and are kind of relative to his power, as they are eventually able to get Godzilla momentarily down and covered in the webs of the spider kaiju from before. But with this, Godzilla decides to stop playing around and stop holding back, as he instantly decides to get out of the web hold and starts to tear these machines off and apart like they were nothing more than paper. Even these stark upgraded MechaGodzillas aren't a match for the actual Godzilla in any shape or form, though as we very shortly find out, this wasn't it. Demonicus, being this villain and very eerie person, of course had a separate plan hidden from even Thunderbolt Ross himself, with him being almost excited and glad that things are turning the wrong way, him going on to say, "Yes, it is time for me to do something. It is time for payback. Not only the monsters, but the men who have brought me to ruin. I've waited long enough to gather all of my enemies into one place. We have been hunting kaijus for a long time, and Godzilla can't be controlled. But if I told you I've planned to kill him from the start, you would have never have let me." Finally reveal his master plan that he has been keeping hidden from everybody here. Going on to continue saying, "You see, I've been slowly breaking down the bodies of the monsters in my incinerator, but I've also been creating new life. A new monster, one that will cull and control the other kaijus forever. And rather than a constant war of dominance, we will simply have one singular dominant ruler." As that giant machine from earlier, the kaiju incinerator, was less of an incinerator and more of an egg, ready to hatch at any moment and harboring something downright horrifying. As when it starts to break out, we see its almost symbiote-like tendrils and demonic goo shoot out. And believe me when I tell you, this thing is very powerful, because as Demonicus has alluded to, this takes bits and pieces from every other kaiju and monster they have killed and essentially matches it together into one weird powerful hybrid. So parts from Fang Foom, Surtur himself, and all the other kaiju in the Marvel universe into one new being, one simply called Hedorah, the horrible amalgam of monsters. And instantly as it's deployed, we see it take on Godzilla himself. And this time, this new creation, this new creature for the first time, gets the upper hand on the king of the monsters. But as Demonicus goes on to further monologue and say, we found out that this new creation, this new monster, he isn't just going to stop at Godzilla. Once he takes him out, he is essentially going to rule over the planet itself, though at the cost of, roaming the world and causing destruction. But for Demonicus, that is just a small price to pay for salvation and revenge against the creatures that have almost took everything from him. But as we see in the giant battle and crossfire between these two creatures, Bruce Banner's armor, the MechaGodzilla, was caught in between as it starts to get destroyed, his very life being into balance as the entire armor starts to get crushed. And here, in a life or death situation, we see Dr. Banner chooses life. Slowly but surely, that green hue, the radiation in his bloodstream starts to slip out, starts to manifest until the Hulk himself, as he bursts out, ready to put the hurt and pain on some of the creatures here, immediately attacking and hurting this giant sludge monster. Of course, Hulk's introduction here is just a surprise to everyone, as up to this point, the forces and everyone here thought he was straight up dead, killed, murdered, yet here he is alive and in the flesh. And as the Incredible Hulk goes on to defend and fight off the sludge monster, he takes a second, moving away from the battle, to save Thunderbolt Ross himself and get him away from being crushed just like Bruce Banner was about to be. Hulk immediately jumps right back into the battle, ready to do what he does best, smash all of the monsters. When he left, the sludge monster and Godzilla got back to fighting on their own, and the sludge monster, Hedorah, seems to be superior. As the comic goes on to say, perhaps Dr. Demonicus' monster would have succeeded. The sludge monster was able to penetrate deep through the soft spot in Godzilla's armor, his eyes. And Dr. Demonicus' monster was dissolving Godzilla faster than it could heal. His eyes, the optic nerves, were the first thing to go, and the sludge monster kept pushing forward until it almost reached Godzilla's brain, killing him for good. But Hulk intervened at the right moment, being a useful distraction, but as this turns out, even the Hulk isn't immune and isn't strong enough to take this thing solo. The Hulk instantly being burned by the magical powers and fire by Surtur himself. As previously stated, this monster does have bits and pieces of powers from every powerful monster and kaiju beforehand, in which the Hulk himself has a pretty powerful healing factor, able to heal most wounds in an instant. Yet here, this wound, this fire, almost corrupts and chars his arm permanently. The Hulk, realizing that this amalgamation of a creature is too powerful, maybe he can't do it all on his own, he goes on to say, everyone says the Hulk is a monster, yet they're all wrong. So maybe everyone is wrong about Godzilla too. Essentially, this being a case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. As well, Godzilla is momentarily down, hurt, and seemingly defeated by Hedorah himself. Hulk has different plans as he uses a live electric wire to almost jumpstart Godzilla's heart, pumping him full of electricity in different voltages. But not only that, Godzilla before was no match for this creature, so now he needs a power-up. Because if you just take basic logic, what does Godzilla feed on and is powered by? Radiation. And what is the Hulk? A being of virtually limitless strength, powered and made up of radiation in the form of gamma radiation, as he leaks his gamma irradiated blood all over Godzilla, slowly infecting the giant lizard and powering him up even further. Godzilla slowly getting up, getting stronger, his eyes now a very deep gamma green, with the comic going on to say Hedorah, this weird amalgamation of a creature, previously had the advantage in every way, especially size, but not anymore, as it's Godzilla's turn to smash, us finally seeing a crazy powerful concept. If you thought Godzilla and the Hulk were powerful before, what do you get when you combine the two? The gamma powered strength of the Hulk now into Godzilla, the king of the monsters, you get this horrifyingly powerful new creature, bigger, badder, stronger than ever before, as now the tides of battle are instantly shifted and Godzilla goes on to do a little bit of smashing on his own. And it's almost crazy how simple it was. This hybrid creature who was able to almost single-handedly take on Godzilla and Hulk before just gets utterly decimated by this new Godzilla. The fury of Godzilla burned with the anger of the Incredible Hulk, and in one powerful blow, one powerful attack, Hedorah was no more, obliterated and incinerated. Of course, the base down below being caught in a crossfire, Demonicus gets exactly what he wanted and deserved, a very quick and painful death. And with that situation covered, that situation being over, Hulk and Godzilla finally meet face to face. But with everything they've been to, there's no need for more endless battle and bloodshed. As the Green Goliath goes on to say, Hulk is the strongest one there is. Hulk himself doesn't want to prove that today. In almost like perfect timing, we found out that gamma radiation takes a toll on any being, doesn't matter how big, how small, how powerful, as even Hulk and Godzilla aren't immune to this. Both monsters just collapse as their gamma rage subsided, reverting back to their base forms, Godzilla turning back into his usual, kaiju form, and the Hulk being turned back into Bruce Banner. And of course, Ross is immediately back on the battlefield with a gun to Banner's head, saying, "Give me one good reason not to pull the trigger and ending the Hulk once and for all." But as we see, the Hulk has made new powerful friends, as Godzilla is here to have his back and stick up for him. Of course, Thunderbolt Ross, not being an idiot and wanting to live, he goes on to put the weapon away. Though as we see, maybe everything isn't as it seems, with us seeing a very tiny trace amount of the sludge monster attaching and hiding itself within Ross himself, almost in a very symbiotic type of way. Potentially, this isn't the last we will see of this crazy new monster that brought not only Godzilla, but the Hulk to their knees. But with that, that is the end of this issue and the end of this story. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. An interesting concept where we've seen Godzilla and Hulk not really come to blows or fight head to head, but coming together out of necessity to take down an even bigger threat. But who knows, maybe we eventually will see them come head to head, as this isn't over. We know this is an ongoing series, as the next issue Godzilla will meet Spider-Man himself, and we'll go on to do whatever crazy adventures that story has to offer. But for here and now, if you have enjoyed, leave a like, or subscribe if you're new and want to see more content just like this. Leave all of your thoughts and comments down below, and even consider joining and becoming a channel member if you like what I do here. As always though, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.